Welcome everybody to the New Fly Fisher. I'm Colin McEwen. Great to have you here tonight. We're a week away from the holiday season and Christmas. As you can see, I'm starting to get into the mode. And tonight we have somebody really special on, Tim Flagler from Tightline Productions. We're going to be talking about fly tying, why fly tying is so popular. We're going to talk a whole bunch of things. You're going to love it. Let's get the show going.
That's a nice sized fish.
I will catch these all day.
That is what you're in for on this episode.
Well, welcome everybody to the New Fly Fishers Facebook and YouTube live event. And I'm really pleased to introduce you to Mr. Tim Flagler. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Colin, how are you?
I'm great, thank you, sir. And thank you for coming on tonight. And we got so much to talk about. I mean, I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, long before we got introduced to one another. And you've helped me turn my flies from roadkill to something I can actually show somebody in a fly box and not be embarrassed.
Yeah.
So thank you. So I expect we're going to get a lot of questions tonight, but the bottom line is, why don't we start talking, if you don't mind. I'm going to talk to people about how we met and some of the things we're doing like right now with the Jensens.
Great. Go for it.
So I guess the first thing, you and I actually met you at, I think, Somerset a number of years ago, because you live in New Jersey, right?
Right.
And obviously you were part of Chuck's shows and going around. And I briefly met you, and I think I was with Joe Humphreys or somebody, but I was going around talking to all the people, the fly tying things, and there's so many great fly tyers there. But where I got to really know you was through your YouTube channel, because like a lot of people, I can tie certain flies okay. I struggle with the woolly bugger, which is not a great credit for me, but if I want to tie something in a specific type of pattern and I go into YouTube and do a search, your Tightline video productions, it just keeps coming up and up and up and up. And I guess the thing is, why, Tim? Why did you start this? I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, there's lots of fly tyers on YouTube, but you were one of the pioneers on YouTube of getting this going. And more importantly, I think the thing that I really like about your YouTube channel, Tim, is that it's the way you do it. It's so clean, so clear, so well lit. You've got a great voice for this. I mean, it's such a high-end production. So why don't you tell me a little bit about this?
Well, I have an advantage. I'm a video producer, like you, a video producer by trade, and so I've been tying flies for a long time, since I guess 82, 83 is when I first started tying. But in doing video production, the tying thing was really kind of an accident more than anything else. We were doing all sorts of different projects, but one of them was for a candle company, and I was shooting video of these fairly expensive candles, and one of the things I needed to do was not burn up the candles and get in focus real close on the wick. And so I'm looking around my kind of studio area, and one of the things that was there that was the exact same height as the candle happened to be a tying vise. As weird as that sounds. And so I got that and put a fly in it and was testing different macro setups as to how far away I should be and everything like that. Yeah. And kind of fine tuning it with the fly. And then I realized, well, you can make a fly tying video, and we did a few that were contract work. We did one with the Pennsylvania tire, Charlie Meck. I don't know whether you knew Charlie or not.
I actually met him in Pennsylvania.
Great guy, and a guide out there, Eric Straub, and we did a DVD series with them. And so kind of that was the toe dip, if you will. And then Joan, my wife, and I decided, we have all these things. We're on the road. We're always out shooting. Is there anything that we can do in the studio? And fly tying was just kind of a natural thing. And I think you can really see the, I guess the progress. You know, I go back and look at those videos from 8-9 years ago, and I'm just absolutely horrified.
Yeah.
and so you can see the, you know, the production quality increasing, I hope, throughout time, and again, having a background in video production really helps. You know, we have the gear to begin with, but also, as you know, there are things in video production that are just little tricks that you learn over time, and you know, kind of like tricks in fly tying. And they're at times they're hard to teach, but they're really valuable. Experience counts. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Well, I can certainly agree with you about when I look back at my older video production, and I cringe. And you know, we always, I guess that's the beauty of when we enjoy what we do, Tim, and it's more than just a job, and we take great pride in our craft. We want to make it as good as possible. And you can definitely see, I look at some of your videos from 7, 8, 9 years ago, and you see them now. Wow, what a difference. And now obviously the technologies have helped a lot too, right? With the lighting and other things, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we used to trip every breaker in the house. Our studio's off our house, an old farmhouse. And you know, the old tungsten lights, the big things, they just suck so much power. And we had fans and air conditioners going when we were shooting in the summertime. And now we're all these little LED lights that just huge amount of light, no heat throw at all, just infinitely adjustable. And you know, you can go from daylight to tungsten back and forth, just dial in the color temperature, and it's so nice. And smaller cameras, you know, no big Beta SP cameras anymore, none of that stuff. Most of it's small DSLRs that we're using. So yeah, it's changed a lot.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
As somebody who used to lug those big cameras and the batteries out in the field, it was brutal. It was brutal. So we should mention here, because I want to talk a little bit about the history of you, Tim. And we got some questions already, but we'll just hold on to their questions for a second. But so really, when I was talking about how I met you, I really didn't meet you. And the center pin for both of us was Tom Rosenbauer.
Yeah. Because
I'm friends with Tom, you're friends with Tom, and just by chance, I was talking to Tom about YouTube, about some of the relationships I had with some of the YouTubers and stuff. And we were at that time, this is a few years ago, about 3 years ago for me, and I was mentioning certain things, and he said, well, you got to really meet Tim Flagler and his lovely wife, Joan. They're just wonderful people, and they got this wonderful fly tying. And we're very involved with them at Orvis, and there's a reason, because he makes it so clean and simple. And I'm seeing the comments on the right here about how you do simplify things, which is really important for people like me, because I do believe in the KISS principle too. Being an old Navy guy, because if you make it complicated, then I guarantee you I'm going to screw it up. So you do a great job. And I want to break down your actual YouTube channel, because that's one of the great things you do, Tim. You're doing patterns, but then you break down, here's how you do a fly, here's how you do the wings, or here's how you work with craft fur, here's how you work with, that's as important as the patterns are, Tim, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly, Colin, and I'll say it to anybody that will listen. I do like different fly patterns, but what really keeps me going fly tying, and it has almost since the beginning, are the tips, tricks, and techniques. That's what interests me the most. It's not so much discovering a new pattern, putting a different combination of materials together. It's those little physical things that you do, that dynamic that I really enjoy. And some of it is just so subtle, it's ridiculous, but it makes a huge difference. Your finger position, where how you position the pad of your finger on the thread to hold it, it's as small as that, and that's the stuff that I really enjoy. Just love figuring it out, or reading about techniques, or ideally seeing other people do them.
Well, that's the reason why Your videos are so popular. As a lecturer and presenter, you're so popular, whether at the trade shows, the fly fishing trade shows, or going to clubs, or now today using Zoom. But we'll get into that in a bit. So look, before we go to some questions, look at you in 1985. What a stud muffin. Look at those waders. I remember wearing those type of waders.
Yeah. Those are the old red balls. And
Yeah.
that exact pair nearly drowned me up on the St. Regis River up in upstate New York.
Yeah. That's a good musky river, if I remember right.
We were trout fishing. We were further up. Down by the Seaway. It gets to be a musky river, but we were further up trout fishing, and I was poling with my fly rod like it was an old wooden broomstick, trying to keep my head above water.
Here's another photo, 1989. You have a big affinity in saltwater, right?
Yeah. That was a fairly large. It's actually a yellowfin tuna, so it was big for a yellowfin, and great fish with great friends, and small boat, way further offshore than we ever should have been in that 25-foot boat, but good times.
Oh, that's great. And here's
Yeah.
Wow. I'd like to say, look at that fish, but look at that mullet.
Hey, it was the 80s, man. Come on.
I was just thinking, wouldn't that fit well with a hockey helmet? But I guess I'm looking at it as a Canadian.
Yeah.
That's a striper. So you're a passionate striped bass fisherman, isn't that right?
Yeah. Love to fish in the salt. Really do, and I wish I could do it more. I had many years where I was, every single weekend, any chance I got, I was fishing in the salt, and now it's, more trout fishing, but I still get down to the Jersey Shore and up to Cape Cod and fish for the bass, albies, and bluefish. But,
oh, wonderful! Here's another great shot of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is 1993.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
you kind of cut back on the mullet. It's not as extreme, just on the back now. But so let's jump ahead. Your lovely wife Joan gave me these photos. Here's you, and this is 2015 doing a presentation.
Yeah. We started Joan, like 2014? Yeah, around 2014, really started doing a lot of presentations here in New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania, Southern New York, and Connecticut, and they're just great to do, to Trout Unlimited or trout clubs, conservation organizations, and I'm not really I never thought of myself as a public speaker or presenter, but I don't know why. I really enjoy getting up there and particularly just answering questions from people. That's the best part for me. Yeah,
and here's a shot of you at looks like one of Chuck's shows.
Yeah,
the fly fishing shows. Him and his son Ben.
Yeah, and that was a while ago. I can tell by the vice and the light. That was
Symposium.
Yeah, Symposium. Joan's saying a few years ago now.
Oh, okay. That's beautiful. I like the light, and nicely color coordinated there with the Regal Vice.
Yeah, I switched. I'm green now all over for my gear, but
well,
I'm already missing the show season. We missed the tying symposium here in New Jersey, and looks like Denver's going to push out, and Joan and I. Joan works in the bookstore, I think at the shows, and it's just a neat way for us to get out and see people, and it's gotten to be a good group of friends over the years, and I'm gonna miss that this year. Zoom's okay, but getting together with everybody is really cool.
Well, I think Tim, you're like me. We're optimists, and we know that we're gonna have a great year. We're gonna get over this. We're all going to get inoculated. Things are going to get better. So moving on, here's you in 2020. Now, there's a little difference here, Tim, in the beard, the hair. And this is obviously pre-pandemic, right?
Yes. If the people are that close together, that's pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
It looks like it was at one of the fly fishing shows. Jones telling me that's at Edison. So
That's Edison. Okay.
yeah.
That's very cool. And then we go from there to the person who really got us connected. And this is what you're doing a lot of now with this guy, Tom Rosenbauer. And you do a lot of these tie-offs, which are competitive tie-offs between you and Tom, right?
Yeah. Which they're a blast. It's friendly competition, I won the first few, and then he's come back strong. He's won the last two, so I'm due. And it's funny though, Colin, because I look back and he's probably not going to hear this, but his some of his original tying books, the Orvis Index books, I don't know whether you remember them. They were little 3-ring binders.
Yep, I do.
And he was the one that put them all together, and that's what I learned by. And so it's kind of weird talking and competing against him now when he's the guy that taught me a lot about tying. He doesn't need to ever hear that though.
Well, we'll see if he watches this. So I see we've got a lot of questions, a lot of people making comments, and I got Mark tinging me on here on my phone. There's quite a few now, he says. So I guess we better talk to some people here,
Sure.
and then we'll come back to some of these things. But thank you for going through the history. I think the key is that, obviously you're like me. We enjoy what we do, enjoy educating people, but we also love this group we're in. I mean, the fly fishing community, whether it's the fly tying or it's the people out in the field, it's just such a wonderful group of men and women and people of all ages. That's why I love fly fishing, right? And they're so generous to one another, sharing flies, sharing knowledge, everything. I mean, I really don't have anything bad to say about anybody in this community. It's really wonderful.
No, it is. It's phenomenal, and and people stick with it for a long time, and that's another thing is that they're people still super active in the industry in their 90s, which just that's a great thing for me to look forward to. I love that part of it.
Well, I feel the same way, and hopefully I can do that well into my years when I go all gray. Fishing with Andrew. I'm not saying about your gray there.
Oh, I do have a little gray coming in, don't I?
You got a little bit going there. So fishing with Andrew is asking what your favorite brook trout flies, winter and summer, are.
Oh, brook trout. I'm gonna tell you that's a tough one for me anymore. Back in the day when I was in college, I went to college north of the Adirondacks, and so brook trout were kind of I don't want to say they're the only game in town, but they were a big part of it. And so being up there, the Ausable Wolf, definitely Fran Better's pattern, I'm going to put right up there for kind of an overall attractor. Another one would just be the regular old elk hair caddis for a dry fly. Just in those tumbly little brook trout streams, there's almost nothing better. Mm-hmm. Floats well. So yeah, I'm gonna go with a sable wolf and a little, I'm gonna say cream elk hair caddis for that. And most of those, I'm only fishing dry flies when I used to do it. Back then, never really nymphing or doing anything like that.
Okay. Well, that's good answers. I also like Fran's. Didn't he make the usual?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And gosh, I just saw a posting of it on Instagram tonight. That I would, in terms of a sulfur imitation for here, Mid-Atlantic anyway. And I've seen really great looking patterns. So I'd still put the usual up against any of them. I don't know why, particularly for the sulfurs, but the sulfurs here, that is the pattern to have. You can mess around with different colors, emergers, parachutes, classic Catskill styles, but something about that usual for the sulfurs just works.
I would agree with you. It's a great pattern. J.M. Letty says, Mary Pat says, hello to Joan. She knows she's there somewhere.
Yeah. How are you guys? They're part of the Patagonia crew. They went to Patagonia with me 2 years ago, and hopefully are going back this coming year with any luck. So,
Oh, wonderful.
yeah,
I'm
great,
pretty
great
upset
folks.
about. I'm upset because I was supposed to go to Chile myself in January, and obviously we're not going. So,
Yeah,
but that was more for not shooting shows. That's having fun.
Yeah.
Got somebody asking, what is the best flies for stocked rainbows in ponds? And he says, thanks for a great video.
Yeah, ponds. I got to tell you, really aren't my thing. We have a few of them around here that I fish, but most of them are, bass and bluegill ponds. They're really not trout ponds so much. But I will tell you, back in the day, back up near the Adirondacks, I like nothing better than, and this is going to sound horrible, just in a canoe or a little john boat, just towing streamers behind, just trolling them along, and just waiting for the bite. As simple as that sounds, and I still long for those days. I really do.
Well, that's a very popular thing to do in the Adirondacks. Look at Maine. Everybody does that there.
Yeah.
They jump in their canoe and paddle around with a rod over the side, right? Or a line over the side.
Yeah.
On
But
a
I
streamer.
tell guys who are stream and river anglers down here that it's great. You just go out in the pond, and little trolling motor or even just a paddle and pull flies around. You put them on a sink tip, get them down deep maybe, or just keep them below. And they're like, how boring is that? And I'm like, you have no idea. It's a great way to spend a day. Love it.
Yeah, and very relaxing.
Yeah.
The one thing, if I could add that to help answer that, when I was out in Idaho and I was also in another U.S. state in the West, and they had stocked rainbows, the pattern that worked the best, besides a woolly bugger on those stocked ponds, was a brown Chernobyl foam ant. Big, like not real big, say a size 10, and the guys would smack it down, lift it up, and then smack it down again. And the principle was, because these trout had been raised with pellets, they would come up and at least have a look at it. And we were crushing them with it. Not real big, size 10, like that brown color like a pellet is, and it would work. Horrible thing that in many ways, some people would say, oh, that's not right. But you know something, if that's the fishing you've got, that's the fishing you got. You still need a pattern that's going to work, because they're not going to come up and eat a parachute Adams or, name a fly or caddis if they're not tuned into whatever's hatching, right? So
Absolutely.
That's Dave OMD is asking, late to the show, what's the status of Cree hackle in the market? Who's hoarding? I guess it's like a stock market question.
It is, and this is. I mean, we talked about it briefly before, Colin. With the pandemic, and fly fishing is just blown up. There've been articles in Wall Street Journal, New York Times about it, and just how popular it is. It's kind of pandemic friendly, and fly tying being even more pandemic friendly. You can sit at your little tying desk and just do it all by yourself and order materials online. But what's happened, I think anyway, is people have started collecting hackle, and they're now hackle auctions and things like that. And it's all well and good. I don't want to bash it, but as a fly tyer, the idea of these just gorgeous Crees and things like that being tied up in collections, and a feather never getting taken off of them just kind of hurts,
Yeah.
and that they're just sitting somewhere and that they could be used to tie flies. I suffered. I'm sure you remember with Steven Tyler with the feathers in the hair, and we couldn't get hackle for a number of years. It was just ridiculously expensive, and I came up tying in the days before genetic hackle, and so it was really hit or miss. I mean, we were using some stuff that people just wouldn't even consider today to use for dry fly hackle, and so when there get to be shortages, It's not good. The good side of that though is there are a couple of smaller breeders that are coming into their own and trading genetics back and forth, and they're producing some just beautiful birds. It's not as kind of factory. They can't be as consistent with colors and sizes as a huge breeder like Whiting can be, but they're coming up with some real like kind of localized stuff, which I like a lot. Kind of getting into that. Hopefully the collectors won't get leap on those guys too bad, but we'll see.
Well, there's always these highs and lows, supply and
Yep.
demand. So just like you said, when our infamous Aerosmith rock star decided to make it that every girl wanted to have those feathers in their hair, it was bad, right?
Yeah. I saw a Whiting saddle sell at our local fly shop for $600, and just went, you got to be. And the person walked in like it was nothing, and just paid cash, and so.
There's some nice comments on the side here, like what Lance said about your hackle plier trick for the Davy knot, and some other great comments. And then one person's asking about, do you prefer a pheasant tail nymph or a hare's ear nymph? What's your favorite?
Hey, you know what? That's a great question. It really is. I'll be completely honest with you. It's a pheasant, or sorry, it's a hare's ear. Yeah, I like them both. To me, a pheasant tail for generally for smaller bugs, skinnier bugs. Things like blue-wing olive nymphs, stuff like that. But a hare's ear to cover a lot of them. I do a lot of. I shoot a lot of nymphs in fish tanks that I sample from the streams, and you always hear go slender, go slender, go slender. But in shooting the nymphs in these fish tanks, I've realized that most of them have, although their bodies are flat, they're definitely they're wide. They're fairly wide, and I think a hare's ear does a better job of imitating the natural. Not for all species of insects, but I like hare's ears better. I can tie them faster, but I tie a weird hare's ear. It's like a mix between a hare's ear and a pheasant tail. So maybe I don't really know what I'm talking about here, but
No, I think you do. And if I could add something that you would probably want to add to based on your research in your fish tanks, I've got a friend of mine, when he ties either one of those flies, he always uses a little bit of flashback to make it look like an air bubble, because his belief is that makes it more realistic, and he gets more strikes with that little bit of flashback to make it look like an air bubble, which you do see in the tanks, because I've seen it myself.
Yeah.
Not always, but I mean, if they seem to a lot of times have the air captured there to get around. Anyways, everyone's got their thing. Just like some people say, you got to put a little yellow on the bottom or a little red on the throat on a streamer. Everyone's got their thing. But what's your opinion on that, about the flashback?
For me, my opinion is based in sheer laziness more than anything else, sloth, if you will. And so I never liked the tails. I didn't like the guard hairs on a hare's ear, a traditional gold-ribbed hare's ear, as a tail. And so I switched over to using pheasant tail fibers. But being like super lazy, what I do is I tie in the pheasant tail fibers, then I produce the abdomen using rabbit fur and gold rib, but I use that exact same clump of feathers that I use for the tail. That becomes the wing case. So I'm not tying in another material, and I double it back, do all sorts of weird little things. But yeah, so that kind of hybrid between a pheasant tail and a hare's ear really just comes from laziness more than anything else.
Well, I'm certainly guilty of that too. If I can find, that's again one of the great things about your videos. You show shortcuts so that you don't have to go through the pain of some of the ties that are required for some really important flies to have in your fly box. Roger Bird asks, "What's the best background color for tying?" That's a good question.
It is a good question, and to me, it's kind of the same. Oddly enough, for you photographers out there and video people, we use something to evaluate exposure. It's 18% gray, a gray card. You get them at your photo stores if you want. To me, that's the perfect background to tie against because it works well for light colored flies. It works well for dark colored flies. And one of the things, if you don't want to get a gray card like that, a gray athletic T-shirt, it makes a wonderful backdrop.
Oh, really? I guess because it's flat, right? It doesn't.
Yeah, the
light?
speckled. In fact, on most of the tying videos that I'm producing now, that's what that background is. It's a T-shirt, an athletic T-shirt, and so yeah, I like that medium gray.
Okay, that's
I'm sure you could do better if you were switching colors all the time, but 18% gray is just perfect, I think.
Okay, that's good. Ramon from Chile says hi, and he's also saying your flies are very effective in Patagonia.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
And Jay, who's in Arizona, wanted to share that he's had luck with the mare's mini leech tied with a bead, on a jig head, or jig hook, which I saw that pattern you put out a few weeks ago, and that's a great looking fly.
Yeah. Yeah, Jay's a New Jersey transplant. He's stuck out there in the desert now, but hopefully he'll get back here one of these days.
Sorry, didn't you say that there's 18 inches of snow or something in New Jersey? I'm sorry, where's in Arizona?
It's horrible here. And, no, that Landon's Myers mini leech is just unbelievable. That fly should be illegal.
Really?
It's that good. Yeah. I'm going to put two. And Lance Egan's red dart is the other one that just. Somebody asked me that the other day online. If I had one fly to use year round here in the Mid Atlantic anyway, what would it be? And it would be either one of those two. I said the red dart, but I'd put that mini leech right in there too.
What about this one?
Well, that one, that one as well. I like the woolly bugger on the jig hook, and that's a lot like Landon's mini leech. So they're kind of fit the same bill, if you will.
So
I think the mini leech might have a little more movement though, and that's probably why it's so effective. The red dart, I can't speak to why that thing works, but I just can tell you it does.
Now, I'm sitting here writing these down because I'm going to look them up. And, there's lots of people out there doing the same thing. Okay, Landon's mini leech. Better check that video out. So why don't we switch gears? We'll come back and answer some more questions from viewers. Why don't we? I'd like to talk about your channel now. Okay.
Okay.
Like, how long have you had the channel?
I think nine years now. But it was, early on it was kind of just all over the, the way you start off with YouTube anyway, and there is kind of a funny story. One of the, one of the first flies I did. I actually tied it for a friend of mine to show him how to tie this one pattern, the Y2K. It's kind of like a little glow bug thing with the bead head on it. And excuse me. And so I didn't really know how YouTube worked. But back then, that's the only way you could really show somebody. You couldn't Dropbox a video file at that time. It was just too big.
Yeah.
And so the only way I could show them that fly was to put it up on YouTube, and I didn't have a clue as to what YouTube meant. And so I tied the fly for him because we'd fished with it and done really well. And so I called him up the next day, and it said, and I'm looking at it, and it had been viewed like 9 times. And I said, do you have like a learning disability or something? Because you watched it 9 times. It never even dawned on me that other people were watching it. And so by the end of and he goes, no, I hadn't even watched it. And by the end of the day, it had like 60 views. And that was another kind of, I'm not a fast learner, Colin, as you can probably tell. And
Welcome to the club.
That was like, maybe there's something to this whole YouTube deal, and that many people could see it in 24 hours was just kind of a shock to me. And
Well, that's quite a leap from 60 views to 26 million.
yeah, it happened, fairly well, not quickly. It takes time to build a channel, and I think fly tying has kind of been on a build phase that roughly parallels that as well. I think the internet has just done incredible things for fly tying. Mm-hmm. I know I've told you this before, but I started tying from books and magazines, which really, they have their place, but as I say, there is a whole lot that happens between figure 3 and figure 4. And in a book or a magazine, and that stuff is really, really important, and video is the solution to that problem. You see what happens between those two formerly still images, and so I think fly tying owes a lot to the internet and the accessibility to tying information that people get. And there are other tyers. Maybe they're not the video quality. They're not video producers by trade, but I still learn a ton. I think I watch more tying videos than any person on the planet. From little thing, young kids in their basement making tying videos to old stuff that was shot on Super 8 and somebody put up online.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah. And having that as a resource is it's incredible, because it simply didn't exist when I was learning.
Well, best analogy to compare to what you said, Tim, is when you were talking about Chilton, it made me think about when I used to rebuild Volkswagen Beetle engines back in the 70s using Chilton's.
Yeah,
and like you
Chilton's
said,
guide. Yeah.
And somehow that engine would run, but I had a handful of parts left over. And now you go, and it doesn't matter what car I own, if I've got a problem, it's somewhere in a YouTube video. And I learned how to do it and figure it out, generally speaking. That's why these videos are so great. And I totally agree with you. And we should take this opportunity to mention that I think that's why fly tying, like fly fishing's doing this, is going right up, but fly tying is doing this. Like, people couldn't get fly tying materials. You were talking about it before, but just even the beginner kits right now, they're really hard to get a hold of because so many people are interested. I know it's a pandemic, but I also think it's been a progressive thing in going hand in hand with the growth of YouTube as a learning vehicle to help people.
Absolutely, and not just YouTube. YouTube is great for instruction, but things like I'm going to say Instagram in particular, because even more so than Facebook, people are posting images of flies that are just spectacular. Some of them they're more like art projects, if you will, but it's still pushing fly tying forward. And it's helping, even if you're tying guide flies, you can look at one of these just wild kind of art pieces and go, oh, okay, but I can use just one element from that in my more guide style flies. So just seeing other people pushing it and going in different directions too, whether, it's wild, fully dressed Atlantic salmon flies, or 80 billion different variations of Euro nymphs on jig hooks. It just getting to see and scroll through them every day, see something different. We just didn't have it before, and all of it, you can learn from all of it.
It is fantastic. And, I'd like to talk about your YouTube channel, but this is probably a good opportunity to talk about what you and I and the Jensens are going to be doing here in the future, and we'll talk more about it at the end. But we're going to take what you just said about learning and what we're doing with the new Fly Fisher and what the Jensens are doing with their fly fishing YouTube channel, where we're educating, we're teaching about how to fly fish, what to use, destinations and marry it to what you're tying. So I'm pretty excited about this collaboration we just started in the last month, and everyone that doesn't know about this, we're all working together. And Tim, you're kind of the center man, because all things, doesn't matter where, if I'm in Chile or the Jensens are in New Zealand or we're down in an upstate New York river fishing together, it still goes back to the patterns, right? And we need the flies to get the work done.
Yeah, I don't know. I missed the memo as to how I got to be the center of that. But anyway, that aside.
Well, yeah, it's because you're the eye candy.
Yeah. No, the cool part about that is that I would, me personally, and we get questions every single time. I'll post a video of a fly pattern, and one of the first questions is how do you fish it? Or where do you fish it? And that's what the collaboration, I think, is just, it answers all those questions, because what we can, from say one fly, say it does start with the fly, it can go to you and your guys showing how to fish it at different places around the world, and then as well as to the Jensens, who their stuff is just absolutely spectacular, and kind of a whole new. I mean, I learn a ton every time I watch one of their videos, because it's a different type of fishing than I usually do, but I can draw stuff from their experiences in their video and use it in my fishing. And so we go from the flies to how to fish it, where to fish it, and then that goes out, and if they're casts that you can use, that you can employ while you're doing that, it's just everything starts to come together, and love that part of it.
Okay, so let's lay that seed and tell everybody that we're working together, and that's one of the reasons this is fantastic. But let's talk about the resources. Obviously, people that are here watching this, a lot of them watch our YouTube channel or watch us on TV. But let's talk about your video channel, and I'm going to show this right now, Tim. This is I just took this afternoon, your latest uploads. And I guess one of the great things about your YouTube channel that you and Jonah put together is that, yes, here's a great midge pattern, but then you, right next to it, you had an instruction on how to do reversing the thread wrap. Or there's an like salmon fly, then we jump over tying anchors. So I think what's really fantastic, Tim, about your channel, and I'll show some more clips here while you're talking about, but you decided not just to do fly tying, but you've done a whole bunch of tips, as it were, and little tricks to help people, whether it's fly tying or it's related to other things in fly fishing. Could you talk about this and what made you decide to have that in your channel?
Yeah, because this is well, and I'm glad we have an audience here, because I don't really get to express it. I'll talk to people at shows about this, but what I think people don't realize is that when they go and they watch a video, they're kind of watching unless they've been with us since the very beginning and watched every video all the way through. I can't go through every single technique that I'm using on every single fly. They're ones I've covered on past flies, things like that. And so you have to kind of dig through the patterns in order to find these techniques. And the smaller techniques like tie-in anchors or reversing direction of flying thread was really something that Rosenbauer came up with it from Orvis, and to take those and put them in little 1-minute clips, and so it's all those goodies, if you will, that are kind of buried throughout the tying videos, and putting them just as individual little techniques that can be applied anywhere where you're tying, and make them really accessible, really short, very, very specific. So that's the idea behind those, and they've been received really, really well. They're very popular for us.
Well, I'm going to show some examples. Here's something not fly tying. Do yourself spool tender, you know? And look how popular, 141,000 views.
Yeah.
Or this is when I wrote 1.9 million views, how to do a blood knot. But look how clear that was. Like we've got an animation that we use, and we've got a very high number of views on it too. But this is brilliant. And again, that's with your charismatic voice and soothing, relaxing, simple way of how to tie a blood knot. As opposed to when I'm on a stream in Pennsylvania in late November and my hands are like this going, you know, and I'm trying to do that blood knot because I just put everything in a tree. But anyways, that's what people love about your YouTube channel, Tim. You've got all this great, you know, how to tie a pheasant tail Euro nymph, which is fantastic, and you give all these tricks, but you're going into the other stuff that people want to learn about. And it comes back to what we talked about, which is great about this collaboration education. Because that's what I love about fly fishing. Every time I think I know something, I realize I know nothing. I don't know about you, but like I know basic things about brook trout, and then I go to a river in upstate New York, and I realize how little I know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely agree. And it's, again, it's one of the things that keeps me going. You'd figure after as many years, well, as both of us have doing it, that it might get a little stale. But if you just look around a little bit, there's always something to learn, and it's wild what people are doing. You know, like from competitive anglers, how whether you like competitive angling or not, you have to admire some of the stuff that's come out in terms of techniques. Just wild, out of the box thinking that works to catch fish, or new things. I've recently started doing trout spay, which is a whole nother. I mean, it's just like opening the door to this whole other area that's just crazy, and not just in terms of equipment and casts. It you know, brings up whole different ways to approach a stream, how to swing a fly, and so there's always something to learn. Really like that part about the sport.
And then, of course, when you're learning or you're teaching, the interaction we have, and you meet so many wonderful people that want to share that knowledge or take that knowledge, right?
Yep. I'm going to say especially traveling. That's the other part that is going to different parts of the country or parts of the world, and meeting other, like, even if they don't speak the same language, meeting other fly fishermen is just a huge thrill in seeing how they do it. It might be very different than what we do, but can I tell a real quick story?
Please do. Please.
My first trip down to Patagonia, it got arranged that local fly tying club in San Martin de los Andes, just a fly tying group that they had, it kind of like the local YMCA. And they found out that I was coming down there and asked if I could do a class. And so I literally got off the plane, spent a couple hours on the river, dog tired, but then rolled right into this fly tying class, and with a translator there. But just so cool to me anyway, that people half a world away knew who I was from the internet, for one, you know, from watching YouTube videos. And that, you know, we're talking back and forth through the translator and tying flies together, and, you know, had them coming up and showing me flies that they'd learned to tie from the YouTube channel. They're showing it to me, you know, in its real form. I just thought that was about the coolest thing ever. That
is a great story.
Yeah.
And again, it crosses borders, languages, cultures. You know, it's the love of all aspects of fly fishing, right?
Yep.
I'm going to jump in here and ask you a couple things. There was a great one here. So let me find it. Sorry, I lost it here. Yes, if anybody's wondering, if you're on Facebook right now, this is also going to be on YouTube. And in both places, you can watch it later. I find that these live events, we get tons of people, and I know Tom has told me the same when you're on there and everything. a lot of people watch these later. They're like podcasts, right? Where
Yeah.
people kind of come back and watch them later when they're tying flies, whatever, which I think is great. But anyways, everyone's saying how great you are. I've got to ask you, what's a Shannon's hot stove class?
Every year, it's a great thing too. It's what we do is Shannon's is the shop that I guide through here in New Jersey. It's right down the street from me. Joan and I live in a town that is it's about 1 mile square and has 1,000 people. Has a general store, a post office, and a fly shop, and that's about it. So we're never leaving. And a river, the South Branch of the Red River, flows right through it. Anyway, through the shop, every year, people get a little crazy, and the term hot stove comes from guys prior to a baseball season sitting around a hot stove and talking about the season ahead and predicting things and who's going to do what, and so that's what we do. We get together and have a hot stove for fly fishing, and I'll go down and do a little stream sampling and bring the actual bugs up in a tub and put them in a fish tank. I do a little presentation on what conditions will be coming up in the next few weeks for the opener fly or trout fishing season, and then sit down and tie some of the flies that we can use and show them how to tie them, and do it all with a video set up and a camera so they can see what I'm doing real easily. And it's always a fun night. Have dinner served in and yeah,
Sounds
looking
like
forward to
a great social gathering.
Oh, it is. And I just, I hope we can do it this year. It's
Okay, we're getting back to that optimism. We're going to be positive, right, Tim?
yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So Dave OMD has a great question. He says, how does Tim organize, store his material and tools when traveling to shows and rivers? So you've got an extended Suburban, right, with the trailer?
Yeah, and a Sherpa to haul all this stuff. It is, and Joan will attest. It's one of the real sides to this whole thing is how much material I have and need to have with me to do this. It's really kind of getting out of line, and it's great to have fly tying materials and to keep everything organized. But when like me, when I go to a fly fishing show, I'm carrying stuff to do tying just regular, on the showroom floor. And then I also generally teach classes, so I have to have flies bagged up that are all ready to go for classes. And then I also generally do featured tire at the shows, and so I have that whole presentation and all those flies that go into that. And I don't want to repeat things. I don't want the same flies that I'm going to tie in the class to be what I do at featured tire because Anyway, so it's a nightmare. A couple. Yeah, Joan's saying we go through more big Ziploc bags and the smaller Ziploc bags than you can ever imagine. And the other one are kind of shoebox sized plastic containers. And that's pretty much how we organize. And having, I'll give the guys that help me out a little plug here, but people like Orvis, Regal Vice, Wright Bobbin, Wapsie in particular with all the materials. Falling Mill is a new one for us. They've really helped out. And I'll give you, for instance, with Wright Bobbin. Just if I only had 2 Wright bobbins, just the time it would take to change spools is time I don't have, and so I have more Wright bobbins than I think any tire on the planet, and it just makes things so much easier. I can keep them bagged up, and if I know next week I've got one class that's got these 3 flies, another class that's got these 3 flies, everything just gets put in its own bag. Box of hooks, everything has its place. I hope that answered the question.
I think it did. And, if I could say, I don't know if you do this, but I've discovered that the Brothers labeling machine is my best friend now, because not that I'm so much for the fly tying, 'cause I don't have that much stuff compared to you, obviously, but for all the patterns I have and all the places I fish, and I have boxes and boxes of flies, and I got to label everything just to be able to do it. So I find the labeler, just like you're talking about the Ziploc bags, to be a real important part of what I do. I've actually got it to the point now where I'm buying different colors of tape to print stuff off, because then I know if it's green, it's my bass flies. If it's yellow, it's my trout flies. And if it's bright light blue, it's my saltwater flies. How crazy is that?
I'm going to write that down on my Santa list here, Colin.
Okay, there you go.
Brother label maker.
Well, it just, it does help. But anyways, let's go back to the questions. It's not about me. It's all about you, Tim. And there was a great one here. Lots of comments about the stuff you're doing, but they're asking about wet flies. And what they were asking about is, have you seen a change? And if you don't mind, Tim, I'll answer what I've seen, in that when we don't post that many instructional videos about wet flies, but when we do, I'm absolutely blown away by how many people want to know about how to use wet flies, how to rig them, how to move the line across the river, all the different techniques of using wet flies. And from what I understand, guides are telling me they're getting lots of questions about it. What are you seeing on the fly tying side?
Yeah, absolutely. Wet flies are coming back in, and you know, wet flies kind of go up and down, and I've seen that in the years that I've been tying, and they'll have peaks and valleys, popularity, and then they'll drop off. But there are external factors that influence that, and I think a big one that we're seeing now is trout spay, either single hand trout spay or the two-handed stuff, because it lends itself so well to swinging wet flies, and I think you're seeing that resurgence in wet fly patterns because people are going to the trout space stuff, and the patterns just are phenomenal for it. Just perfect. Streamers are good. Don't get me wrong, but wet flies on a real light trout spay rod, a 2 or 3 weight trout spay, just too much fun and super relaxing too. We honestly, we've been down the Euro nymphing road for a while now, and it's super effective. But if you're doing it right, it's anything but relaxing. And so you're staring at a sighter or an indicator for just hours at a time, and the more focused you are on that sighter, the more likely you are to catch fish. And when you're swinging wet flies, it's cast down and across, maybe a little upstream bend. Put the rod down at your side and wait for a bite. You actually get to look around and recognize that there are birds and trees that are around you, as opposed to a little fluorescent piece of monofilament. And so yeah, I think that's helping with the resurgence, and they're very effective too.
I think that's the key. Yeah. And as my friend calls it, the do nothing technique. Somebody mentioned how they saw your video about the Undertaker, which I've got up on the screen here, which is an Atlantic salmon fly, and they're using it for steelhead. Yeah. And deadly pattern. I'm a big Atlantic salmon fisherman, but I also like catching steelhead in the Great Lakes. And I will say, and I don't know if we talked about this before, Tim. Did you know on the Salmon River in Pulaski, I got taught by a very competent fly shop owner in Stowe, Vermont, that the Undertaker or the Blue Charm tied with a riffling hitch when the steelhead are running takes fish. A lot of fish. Really?
I have never. I don't think I've ever fished with a riffling hitch there. I'd have to try that one. I fished with the Undertaker and the Blue Charm on Salmon River. That was with one of the problems where I went to school north of the Adirondacks. It was like I could make it to Salmon River in about an hour and a half, which I think I lost probably a full grade point on my grade point average as a result of that. and yeah, a little too much time down there during my 4 years of school.
Well,
But yeah, I'd have to give it a try with the riffling.
I just throw it out there, and it's. I
Yeah.
told a guide, John Giuliani, up in Sault Ste. Marie, and he's been using it with the steelhead now on the St. Mary's River. He's finding the same thing. The steelhead will come up and hit a riffling hitch, and the Undertaker and the Blue Charm are the two. That and the silver tip are the three flies that seem to work really well at that riffling hitch for steelhead. They work with Atlantic salmon, yeah, especially in the spring. But anyways, I digress. Yeah. So Tim, we're at an hour right now, and if you don't mind hanging for a little more, we'll do some more questions, and we'll talk some more about some other things. I'm really enjoying this. You're always a fascinating person to talk to, whether I'm at a presentation and that you're giving, or sitting here in this little interview we're doing. Let's go and talk more about your YouTube channel, because I got to ask you about, not that one, I got the wrong one. This fly right here.
The rough water caddis, the Durret.
That, I don't know. That really looks like gold to me.
Yeah, it's. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I think it's Dyret, and whatever language that is, it means the animal, and you can kind of see why. It unbelievable pattern. Floats well, looks great on the water. I think it could be I called it a rough water caddis, but it could be a midge cluster. Gosh, it could be just about anything. It just screams motion and floats well, looks super buggy. And I know other people have had a lot of luck with that particular pattern. But it's definitely a European pattern in its origin.
And now,
since we're over an hour, can I drink beer on camera? Is that?
Yeah, of course. I've been drinking beer the whole time, so you gotta encourage it. So, Tim, here's a real a question I like to ask that we haven't had a chance to talk about before. How do you figure out how do you assess what flies you want to tie? Like, as we're going to talk about in a few minutes here, I'm going to give you some ideas for patterns to tie that we're using in the shows that seem to be reoccurring patterns that are effective. Like the Scotty's McFly I told you about, that's very popular in Northern Ontario for smallmouth bass, but people have discovered it really is a killer anywhere there's smelt pattern, like smelt, right? So people use them for lake trout, they're using them for brook trout. I know guys who use them for steelhead and caught fish. So, but anyways, how do you assess what you're going to tie?
It's all over the place, Colin. There's no rhyme nor reason, and I have a list of flies that I want to tie that's sometimes very, very short. Other times it's long. There's suggestions from people that, they post in the comments field on another pattern. I'd like to see this or that. Other times it's if I'm fishing someplace and somebody has a fly that's working, I'll ask if I can use the pattern if it's unique to them and give them credit for it. And so it comes from just about everywhere. And sometimes, I'm in a saltwater mood, I'll tie a saltwater pattern. If it's heat of the summertime and I'm going to go bluegill fishing, I'll find a bluegill pattern or spend a couple nights bluegill fishing and come up with one on my own. And so, no rhyme, no reason there, really.
Okay. Well, that's great, because this kind of dovetails nicely into us talking about how we, the New Fly Fisher, Mark and I and some of the other hosts, and the Jensens are going to start making suggestions to you about patterns we'd like to see you tie to connect to our videos. So I'll give you an example. And I want to say that you mentioned it right here. One of the great things is that you're very respectful about the patterns. When people have invented a certain pattern, you take the time to make sure that they are okay with you tying it, right?
Yes.
And I think just for a lot of people that are watching this, there's a ton of people on YouTube that don't do that. And it's just like posting pictures or borrowing somebody's video. I mean, ask permission, right? So you do that, and great pattern I love. It's called Weedman Slider. And it was invented by a gentleman by the name of Stu Thompson, who's a very creative fly tyer and inventor of flies in Manitoba here in Canada. And his one pattern, this Weedman slider, it just is the best topwater pike fly I've ever used. And I've discovered it works for other species, not like pike and muskie, but in smaller sizes, it works really well with bass and works with brook trout in Labrador. You can make a smaller version of it, cast it with a 6-weight, and it's absolutely killer. So I went to Stu and got permission. I haven't given you the fly yet, and I haven't given you the instructions and all this stuff, but Stu gave me permission so that we can do this. I think this is going to be a great collaboration of how we can tie in my using this Weedman slider. Say I'm in Manitoba catching big northern pike or northern Ontario, and then it's going to go, and now let's go to the video with Stu Thompson being the inventor and you tying the fly and showing us how to make it.
Sure.
Doesn't that sound fantastic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I got to be completely honest with you and the audience here is, I think we're at how many videos? 500 and something odd videos. We've covered a lot of patterns, and so new ones are always welcome, and especially something that's different. Really like that, and again, ones that are it might include new techniques as well. It makes it even better. Mm-hmm. And then being able to see how they're fished through you or through the Jensens, that just is the icing on the cake. That's perfect.
Let's put some more icing on that cake, Tim. Let's talk about the next thing we're going to do, which again relates to us being able to get outdoors, cross borders, and go fishing. You're going to come and join me on some fishing trips, and Mark, and we're going to go out and we're going to fish together, and then we're going to go up in the bank and sit at a bench, and we're going to make a video of you tying the fly that's catching all those fish. How sweet is that?
I can't wait.
And I'm not sure, I like to think people that are watching this are all going to go, that's fantastic. But, because think about it. There's patterns that are out there that are very localized to a region. And then there's those patterns that seem to transcend any geography. Like they work everywhere. Certain nymphs, certain dry flies, we all know them. But what I love is when you find something that people associate with a species and you think that's what it's good for, and you discover it's good for other types of species. So I'll give you an example. Gurgler. Jack Gartsites, famous gurgler for bass, and they use it obviously for striped bass and other species in saltwater. And I was up at Three Rivers Lodge with Tom Rosenbauer 3 years ago. #1 topwater mouse pattern, gurgler. And they tied it a certain way and a certain look, certain size. And what was important about it, Tim, was it wasn't as effective in slack water. It was in moving water, like choppy water. And you'd hold the rod tip up high and you wiggle this thing through there, and you wouldn't think there was a brook trout, and there'd be a 6-pound brook trout in that water come up and whale this fly. That's what I'm talking. That's the stuff, and you'll be with me, and then we're gonna tie that fly.
I can't wait.
Let me take that back. I'm not going to tie the fly because we know what that'll look like. You're going to show people how to tie it properly. We could show somebody who doesn't know how to tie that fly. That'll be me. We could do what you do with Tom, only it won't be fair competition.
Okay.
But we'll have beer while we do it and enjoy it, right?
Oh yeah, Colin, I can't wait. That's to get out and travel again. Again, think positive. There we go.
Yep. And I like going back to one of the questions, I am really interested, and I know Joan's going to be off the side here snickering, to see how you pack for Labrador with all your fly tying stuff.
Yeah, that is going to be interesting.
There are baggage limits on float planes, just so you know.
Yeah, fishing gear and tying stuff, it's a load.
Yeah, I know. Underwear just becomes such an unnecessary thing, doesn't it? We got a nice question here that people are asking about bluegill and pumpkin seeds. What are some of the patterns that you have seen over the years that seem to be effective for panfish?
For panfish, and I don't do as much of it as I used to. We got a couple guys here in New Jersey that real sharpies with this stuff. But believe it or not, one of the best panfish flies for me anyway is a like a size 10 Prince Nymph, beadhead Prince Nymph. Those bluegill in particular, they just cannot stay off of that thing. I have no idea what it is, and you can actually, if you can see the fly, you can put it right down the bottom. If the bottom's not too mucky, just jump it up and down on the bottom, cast it out there, strip it in. Bluegill absolutely love it. Anything small and foam oriented too for topwater if they're going to come up and eat. A lot of times with bluegill though, they just love to come up and just hit it, just like almost peck at it, kind of hit it with their mouth or their head. And we found that if you have just a little piece of something hanging off the back, a little piece of marabou or a red little hackle feather tip, I'd never do it, of course, but a little chunk of squirmy wormy material, that might work.
I have better way.
Yeah, really can seal the deal and get them to bite the thing. So, yeah,
That's
bluegill
good.
fishing's fun.
It is fun, isn't it? A light rod. I've done it only a couple times. Each time I had a great bit of fun catching those things. Really great question from Gable MD. He asked, Tim, do you have any original patterns? Do you have some patterns you've invented that seem to work well?
Yeah, this comes back to it because as far as I'm concerned, every pattern that there is, I mean, yeah, we have some new technology like jig hooks, but even jig hooks have been around for forever and ever. So I always get a little dodgy with things that I can call my own pattern. But the one of them is a squirrel and hurl bugger would be one that I'd never. People have done sort of similar things to it, but it was to combine three of my favorite materials: pine squirrel, woolly bugger hackle, and peacock curl into one fly. And it gives me the ability to put a darker back on the fly and a lighter bottom, the way many bait fish have, which you really can't do with a woolly bugger. I think it has a little more movement than a straight zonker, if you will. What else do I have? One, it's the name is a little off color, but yeah, it's called the Major Woody. And the Major Woody it's essentially all wood duck or wood duck colored materials. And I'm sure someone's tied the same thing, but I think I'd call that one of my original patterns. I also have a real weird, it's kind of a swimming crane fly larva that's just a rabbit strip, but I actually trim off some of the rabbit to expose the hide, and it looks like the segmentations on a crane fly larva, on the natural thing, and I put it on a jig hook. And it's a really cool fly in that if you walk up to a new stretch of stream, chuck it in there, let it drift, and particularly at the end of the drift, dead drift it. At the end of the drift, as you're lifting it up, watch for fish chasing it. And a lot of times, as soon as it comes into the shallows, they'll take a whack at it. But if you haven't caught a fish in, say, 5 casts, change it out. But so many times, it's one of those flies, you throw it in and it hasn't even sunk and something's on it. They hit it on the drop. But I believe it's a territorial take as opposed to a true eating take. It's an irritant to them, and they just want that sucker out of there. But once they get used to it, they won't touch it.
Well, you're right. Major Woody is not PBS friendly, just so you know. I don't know who he used. I had cat's ass as a fly in one of mine, and I heard about it from the censors at public television when we tried to put that one by. There's a few other good fly patterns. What's that at Atlantic Sam? Montreal Hooer.
Oh yeah,
that one. And that's a good pattern, but like I said, not public television friendly. But
you know, I got to add one more because people are really just absolutely. I'm not getting any love or credit for it at all. I totally ripped off Spencer Higa's SOS, but turned it into a Baetis and changed a few things and called it the Evil Olive, which is a palindrome, same forward as it is backwards. But there are people online talking about the Evil Olive like it was, they just invented it. And I'm like, you can go and check the video, guys. It's 6 or 7 years old, and so the Evil Olive has been around for a while, and just throwing that out there.
Well, hey, I've now got 1, 2, 3. I got 6 flies on my list here. I'm going to go check out after we finish here, because I think everybody that fly fishes, we have our perennial favorites, depending upon a species, but we're always looking for that new pattern that kind of opens the door on those days when it's tough. When you're having problems, the fish are off, the weather's off, the water's high, the water's low, whatever it may be. And they're the key to open that door when you would otherwise be unsuccessful. So that's what's great about what you're talking about here, because I might not tie 20 of them, but I might tie half a dozen and put in my box and give them a try. And like you said, they're not eating, but they might be territorial on a pattern, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of that, and we as tyers, we get so fixated on the fact that they're eating, okay, and we're giving them something that they want to eat. Now, trout don't have hands or feet or legs to go and touch something, or they have their mouths. That's about it, okay? Their mouths, their eyes. Lateral lines maybe to sense that something is not just food but a threat, or they just want to chase it away. It's not even threatening to them. They're protecting something, and they just get out of my area is more the thing. They don't feel threatened by it, but they just don't want it in their space, and so all they can do is take a whack at it with their mouth. And I think a lot of fish are caught that way, that they're not really trying to eat something. They're not trying to gain protein. They're doing it as a territorial or a get out of here reaction. Yeah.
Kelly Gallup did a great piece about that when he wrote Modern Streamers for Trophy Trout. I don't know if you've read that book. And he talks about it. You haven't read it? Great book. And he talks about the different responses on streamers. With the big alphas, say a big brown trout in a certain area, and how they have the hunger, they have the anger, and then they have the territorial. Like you've invaded my space, you look like a sculpin, you know better, I'm not hungry, but I'm going to punish you for coming in here.
Yeah.
You did a dumb thing, right?
Yep.
So that's a whole different stuff. I love that. I'm hopefully going to have Kelly on here this year and talk to him, because he's like, there's the master of streamers, right? Or one of the masters of streamers, and I'm a big fan of some of his patterns. And I'm sure you've got some of his patterns in your boxes, like the Zoo Cougar and things like that, or what's that one there, Sex Dungeon and things like that.
Yeah.
He's got some great flies with names I can't use on public television. But so let's talk, if you don't mind. I'd like to go back about this winter. I mean, you've got a lot of great new videos planned, you were telling me, because like my fly fishing and the TV show, we tend to find the fall that people aren't as interested in the educational videos. It kind of builds around Christmas, and we really, as we go towards the summer, we get busier and busier in terms of the views on YouTube, on television, etc. The same with fly tying. Like right now, everyone's getting back into it. I can't get this. I want that. I'm looking for videos. So you've prepped yourself to have, you and Joan are working very busy right now to do a whole bunch of new patterns. You told me you're going to do some more tricks of the trade to help their fly tying. What else have you got planned?
Well, we have a couple. This is a little off, but not really. You showed the picture of that blood knot and how many views that thing had gotten over the years. Mm-hmm. Our most popular videos are not videos, and so I am going to add a few knot videos that, again, kind of like the flies. It's not just showing you how to tie the knot. They're tricks that go along with it, weird little things. And so you're going to be seeing some more knot videos. I do have, I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but I have a kind of a little series, micro series of tying videos coming up that you're either going to love them or you're going to hate them. I could have people leaving my channel if I put them up there. It's something really, really different, and I need to do just a little bit more experimenting to absolutely validate that they work. But so I'll leave that as a little tease.
That is a tease.
Yeah, and then I'm really looking forward to doing some of your patterns, like you said, and getting those patterns out there and seeing how they merge with the work that you and the Jensens have done. I think that's a huge thing, and so keep that list coming. I've already got the.
Well, you got it.
Yeah, in that little Ziploc bag, you can probably see the green thread.
Perfect.
So
now
we should soon.
Now we should mention that this is something you had told me, that when you were able to do a fly tying video and combined it with on the water video,
yeah,
people just absolutely loved it because you were showing them, here I am using this fly pattern, catching fish, and here's how you tie, which I think is brilliant. So
yeah,
and I just, if you don't mind me adding, so what we're going to be doing, I may be we're going to give him some suggestions for patterns, but beyond that, we're also giving you, Tim, video, underwater video. I'm going to give you above water video. The Jensen's going to do the same. We're going to give you all this stuff to show how to use the fly to catch, and then you're going to show us how to tie this pattern that is working so well. So if Mark is there in Idaho, and he's got a certain grasshopper pattern that is the pattern that's working, or a certain stonefly, he's going to share it with you, and hopefully you can tie it, and then we'll connect the two together, right?
Yep, perfect.
And I think for viewers, this is a wonderful thing. Same with the Jensens. And I think Dave's got some of his own patterns that he's invented, which is going to be really cool to see, to get some of those big trout in New Zealand or out in Western Canada and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing and learning what those patterns are, especially after I saw him with that gigantic brown trout he put up on
that thing
video.
was ridiculous.
On a dry fly. Yeah, I've seen big catches of fish like that with egg patterns, an oak orchard, or I've seen them with woolly buggers and streamers, but
little flies. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty exciting stuff. So I'm really excited about this collaboration. I'm really excited about where we're going to take it. So the first step for everyone is this winter, we're going to work together to combine our video to help visualize the fly we're using, how it's used, where it's used, the whole package in one deal. And then going into the summer, we're hoping everything's going to be better. I'm optimistic. You're going to come to Labrador with me. We're going to meet for other trips. You're going to go with Mark. You're going to go with the Jensens. We're going to go and tie flies on location and show people, here's how we use it on the river. Here's how we use it on the lake.
That's the only problem with that, Colin, is I don't know about you, but I'm a little nervous to fish with the Jensens. I mean, they're really good.
Well, you got to run faster, though. You got to get ahead of them.
Yeah, I've been watching their videos, just going, oh my goodness, I got to up my game before I get anywhere near those folks. Holy smokes.
Yeah, well, what I really like about them is that they're still very real to the way it is. I mean, they're like you and I experience, and everyone else that's in here watching this, is you got to balance it with, okay, I just finished doing an Atlantic salmon show, and there was no 0 to hero. I was 0 all day, and there was fish there, and myself and the guide, we could not figure out what it was, but that's what makes it real, right?
Yeah.
Because you can have all the greatest patterns that you talked about, which will work for those Atlantic salmon, and we're doing everything we can do to trigger it, but sometimes it's just the way it works out, right? But that's what I love.
Yeah.
It's got to be real, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Tim, there's lots of people here talking. Most of them are just saying how great you are. And obviously,
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
well, I know Joan's your biggest fan, but I'm one of them too. And I really look forward to working with you, Tim. As Tom had said to me multiple times, you and Joan are the two nicest people in the fly fishing industry. I'm really, Mark and I both feel very privileged to be collaborating with you now and into the future, and trying to help teach people more about fly tying, more about fly fishing, more about places to go, same as the Jensens. I mean, I'm really excited about the future we've got working together.
Well, yeah, and so are we, Colin. Really and truly, and can't wait to really get up and running. And I think we're getting there already. I mean, we made some good progress. So look forward to great things.
So the last thing I wanted to end with is that you had mentioned some of the supporters who are helping you with your videos, and obviously we both work with Orvis. And I got just a side note, my first vise, Regal vise. That thing had to be from the 60s. I still have it. I still use it. I've got some other vices too, but man, those new Regals, they're beautiful.
Oh, they are spectacular. Do everything well, and one is not enough.
So what do you recommend for lights? I've got to ask that before we go. What do you recommend for lights?
I am.
No, let me refresh that. What do you recommend for lights that are portable? Because one of the problems I get is that, like a lot of people in here, my local club or I've got friends, we get together and we tie flies. I can't be lugging a big, huge setup, with my vise to go to places. And sometimes I even want to take them on trips. So what do you recommend? Is there something that sticks out that you like?
Yeah, but it's, gosh, this is a tough question at this point, Colin. I have a light that I've been using for a number of years. I have not had any problems with it at all. It's a foldable light, and but we recently have been made aware that people are having some problems with them. Okay. And so I'd rather.
You don't have to go to a brand. I personally have an Ott light in my basement.
Ott lights are just fine.
Yeah. And some people like them because they're supposed to be very true to the colors in terms of the light spectrum.
Yep.
But again, there's lots of preferences out there. And then, I think I've got one right here behind me. You see one of these little small LEDs, and that's my, if I break it, I won't cry, $10 special. Right. Which is good for when we're in places and I'm on the road and I don't want to break it. But, well, this is something we can talk about in the future more because, as I'm learning more about fly tying and about the equipment and the things that make it better, I'd love for you to share that with myself and for all the viewers that are going to watch us in the future.
Actually, what we're talking about, I do have a little hint for you guys, and I don't want to take away anything from fly fishing manufacturers, the lights or whatever, but for me, I obviously do a lot of tying videos, and the light that I'm using when I'm doing tying videos are video lights, okay? Mm-hmm. And LED video lights have really, they used to be extremely expensive and have come down so much in price that they're getting to be comparable with a light that you get at a fly shop. And so they're, with LED technology just advancing, they're small video lights that are just perfect for tying flies. In fact, if I'm doing a tying video and I spend the whole day doing this tying video under a video light like I have up here, and then I go back and I tie with my normal tying light, I'm tragically disappointed. And so maybe look towards some video lights as your primary fly tying lamp.
That's a very good suggestion.
Throwing it out there.
If you go on Amazon, there's a bunch of those professional video lights. I'm not talking about the round hoop ones. We're talking about, they've got tube ones, they've got square ones. my cameraman and I, we bought a whole bunch of these little square ones that actually have magnets on the back. So you can smack them onto things to shine light in, and we use them to fill in shadows when we're on the road. But also, they have a little screw in, and you can put them on a pole and put them right next to whatever you're shooting. So that's a great piece of advice. Thank you.
Yeah, and they're like I said, I wouldn't have suggested it even 2 years ago, but they've come down in price so much that they're comparable, and a lot of it's because it's for video. It has to be good quality color and very clean light without any strobing, and that's easier on your eyes. And video gear is designed to be durable. It's designed to be set up and taken down. So durability is good on them as well.
Perfect. That's great advice. Thank you, Tim. So I'm just going to put up here on YouTube, if people want to search for your channel and they haven't been to it, Tightline Video or Tightline Productions. Either of those two titles will help them find your channel.
Yep.
Right. And then online, tightlinevideo.com.
Yep.
That's your production company. And in there, you can also find your YouTube channel. And also, if people are interested in having you, something we didn't talk about. I know we've been on for a little bit here, but we should talk about something my local club just hired you to do. And that's because of the pandemic. And that is the fact that you do Zooms now. So if I want to get 10 or 15 of my friends together, say, or a dozen of us, or I got a local club, right now you're doing time for people through Zoom. And everybody can sit there and ask you questions and stuff, very much like we're doing here, only you've got the whole screen filled with people. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's really fantastic breakthrough.
Yeah, it is. And, the pandemic's a terrible thing, but that I can, through Zoom anyway, I can, we've been doing presentations for California, Arizona, going to do one up in Ottawa, and so it's expanded our reach. But one of the cool things about it is the way I have my video set up is I can switch between this video source, me talking, answering questions. I can switch to my video presentation, but then I can switch back to my one view on my tying vise, another camera that's a view of me prepping materials. And so I have access through a video switcher to all those different sources at any one time. And so in terms of a tying presentation, people get to see a better view of what I'm doing than they could even see at a live event. Okay, because my camera's between me and the fly. It's ultra macro. So they can't get my perspective if they're looking back at me at a fly fishing show. And I love to show the materials prep, which is a second camera. And then again, when I'm talking to them, they get to see my ugly mug. Or if I need to show a video example, say of that fly that I'm tying, what its natural looks like swimming underwater, I can switch to my video source and show them that. And so it just, kind of neat how it all worked out. And the presentations have been very well received, and they're a lot of fun to do.
Well, that's fantastic. And so if people are interested in setting something up like that with you, what's the best way to do it? Through your website?
Through website website, and they will be
tightlinevideo.com, right?
Yep.
Okay.
They will be speaking to Joan, not me. I'm not allowed to have a calendar or a checkbook, and for good reason too.
It's good to know your limitations, right?
Yeah, fly tying and video, and that's about it.
But I think that's really important that because I know I've been to fly tying. I remember I was with Phil Rowley, and he was doing a presentation, which is brilliant. About
Great guy.
And doing the stillwater patterns.
Yeah.
And it's being projected up there. But you're right, it's kind of one-dimensional because he can only focus that projector and the camera on the fly that he's tying, but we're not seeing over here this, or he can't introduce the fish catching or the underwater and like add those little tidbits, which Zoom's allowing you to do. I mean, that's just opened huge doors from a production quality level to the delivery of the video, and then it's live to answer questions. Like that's phenomenal. It really is phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm just my hope is that people don't get too used to it and expect me to haul all this gear around to fly fishing shows to give them that same experience at a fly fishing show, because that ain't gonna happen.
No.
But yeah, it's worked out really well, and
Well, if I could say, if you look at it, I think it's a great thing for any club out there that's watching, people in clubs, because as we both know, the costs of having you there is the expense of getting you there.
yeah.
Right. And the hotels and then, I know myself, and I've done presentations, a day there, stay the next day, get up, do the presentation, next morning, go to the airport, fly back. I mean, it's much easier on you, and it's much better for them, and it's cheaper. So it's a win-win, right? And like you said, the production value is better.
Yeah, and it's remarkable that it took a pandemic for us to figure that out. It is, of course. I mean, I love presenting in person and getting to interact in person with people and talk to them in real time. And I know that for many, for like clubs, that the social aspect of it is huge, and you don't get that same thing from Zoom. So I'm still very much looking forward to doing live presentations once we can. But Zoom's a great and interesting replacement for the time being.
Okay, great. Well, listen, Tim, I'm going to end this, and I'll just say to everyone that's watching, first, thank you very much for being on our show tonight. And both Mark and I are thrilled to be working with you and the Jensens. And a very big thank you to Joan for organizing you
Joan.
and organizing me. Because she kicked my butt today and said, "Hey, do you want some pictures?" Oh yeah, I guess I should get some pictures. So big thank you to her. And then I'm just going to put out that our new season, we're getting lots of messages, and people are saying, "When are you putting up new content?" We've got new content coming. Our new season starts on the 26th of December. It's the holidays, and yes, that's when we're going to start on YouTube and on the different networks we're carrying our show. Our new season, which is 27 full-length episodes, will be coming out then, plus all the accompanying fly fishing guide tips, everything. So we're going to be putting up 2 guide tips a week and 2 full shows every week. So there's a lot. This is why I've been crazy busy, Tim. And Joan, who can tell you, if she says, "Is he ever going to answer my emails?" That's why, Joan, I'm really, really sorry. Mark and I are going flat out, and Mark in there decided to buy a new house. So he made it even more special. But Tim, to you and Joan, thank you very much for participating.
Thank you, Colin
and
Mark.
Sincerely, I'm really looking forward to working with you and the Jensens.
As are we.
All right. Everyone, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
And we look forward to having you watch more of our videos and hopefully meeting you on the water someday too. Take care. And happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays, everybody.